Hi there, my name is Shaun Bindley and this is Meet the Ministers. My guest on the program this evening is the Minister for Transport and Multicultural Affairs, the member for Inala, and Annastacia Palaszczuk. Annastacia, welcome.
Hello.
You've got a fairly substantial family history in politics. Did you always have it in the back of your mind growing up that you might end up in politics?
Probably not really. We always had a strong community service attitude in our family.
And a very close-knit community at Inala in general?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. My father was always going to events and, I was always helping out election campaigns. But I thought that I'd probably enter the law, but I've always had a very keen interest in politics, and it's something that's always been in the family.
Of course, your father, Henry, was the member for Inala for, 20-odd years?
That's right, yes. And I can remember that he missed out on quite a few of my school graduations because of his commitment to going to events in the local community. But they're the sort of sacrifices that when you're growing up in a political family that actually does happen.
Absolutely. Is he still in the background willing you on and whispering advice in your ear every now and then?
Not really, but he did give me one very good piece of advice, and that was when I was elected. He said, anyone coming through the door has a story to tell, and they're coming to you as the last resort a lot of the times because they've had doors shut on them, and he said everyone has a story and your job is to listen and to help them as much as you can. So I've always kept that in the back of my mind, and community has to come first.
Absolutely, and it's kind of unfortunate, I guess, that people do sort of turn to their local member as a last resort. Is that as relevant now in this day and age, do you think, or has that kind of changed somewhat?
I think social media's had a bit of an impact because people can now follow you through Facebook or Twitter. But no, there's still a lot of contact. You're expected to go to a lot of events. I'm always out at pensioner clubs, community organisations, always going to the school communities as much as possible. And people do come in. I do have a lot of housing issues in my local area, and people do come to me when a lot of the times they just can't communicate through the local Department of Housing. So I'm sort of like their advocate. And look, sometimes we get wins, sometimes we don't, but there's nothing better than when someone comes in and says, I finally got that house for my family.
Of course, different electorates have different quirks and different issues that directly relate to people in their areas.
Yes.
What was it like growing up with a father who'd been in Parliament, like I say, for 20-odd years? Was it a close-knit family? You've got a couple of sisters as well?
I've got 3 sisters. There's a bit of an age gap between us. But, Mum was really around a lot, and she always, she was very strong on education and making sure that we all studied and did our work. And look, I just think it was something that we were used to. So Dad was out quite a lot in the community. He was out in Parliament. And we could help out whenever possible. So on the weekends, if he was going to different functions or fetes, I'd usually tag along. But I have to say that during those days that he wasn't there, it was my mother who really stepped in, and she was the one who always said to my sisters and myself that we would go to university and really pushed education with us. Well,
that obviously followed through. I mean, looking at your record, it would seem to me that you didn't have a lot of time apart from studying growing up anyway.
Oh, no, there was a bit of spare time to do different things. Like we were always involved with sport and classical ballet, so Mum was always ferrying us around to different things. But yeah, going to university was very important. And when I was there, I studied arts law. And initially, I didn't get into law straight away, so I did 2 years of arts before I could change over. And I studied political science, some history, and I also did a bit of drama as well. So
that contrast of the law and the arts and drama quite often go quite well together.
Yeah, that's right. Like I could have ended up, as an actor or something perhaps, but no. But it was always good to have that creative side as well. I've always had that in me, so it was good to pursue that. So a few theatre productions, and I was also involved with theatre sports for a while as well. Okay,
you still find time to sort of engage in that creative bent behind the scenes these days?
Not so much these days, not enough time, but I do try and get along to the theatre as much as possible when I can.
I always thought it would be nice to have a sort of a parliamentary theatre troupe or something like that, doing the regional towns once every 3 years.
A parliamentary. Well, we do have
There's a lot of theatre going on.
Parliament that goes out and everything, yeah.
We're going to talk more about your family history. I'm very interested to talk to you about your grandfather and the legacy of your grandfather. Spent a lot of time in an internment camp during World War II before bringing his family to Australia. What do you remember initially about your grandfather?
He was one of my key role models, and he was always there when I was growing up, and started teaching me Polish, but unfortunately at that time having a second language wasn't very important in our community, which I actually regret that I didn't actually learn more of that language. But he had a very substantial impact on me. I remember he was telling me that he was in a work camp in Germany and for like 7 or 8 years, and I actually think he missed out on educational opportunities. And he was such a smart man. He came out here as a Boilermaker, and he continued as a Boilermaker for the rest of his life. But in the evenings, he would actually, for the thirst for education and to know more, he would actually read encyclopedias. And my father used to tell me that story quite often.
Great shame that the need to care for his family and put food on the table prevented him from actually maybe seeking further education, because there's been such a history of further education in your family since then.
That's right, but he always said to my father the importance of education. So then when my father went through Teachers College, he assisted as much as possible, and he always stressed to me the importance of for me to actually go and study law. He just had it in his head one day that I'd be a lawyer. So he had a very strong impact. I can always remember going over there for Polish Christmas, and I now still continue that tradition. So now the whole family comes to my house for Polish Christmas.
Fantastic. So, how does a Polish Christmas differ from a traditional Australian?
Well, for a start, there's raw salt herrings and a little bit of vodka to wash the salt herring. Just a little bit of vodka. And then like lots of food and sharing, and there's also a tradition of getting some wafers and breaking the wafers as a way of starting the meal. So it's great. It's a good opportunity for the family to come together, and I've also expanded that to friends. But that's my earliest memory. One of my fondest memories is actually going over to my grandfather's house every Christmas Eve, and he would bring out his piano accordion and he would play, and it was always a happy time.
Is it a big extended Palaszczuk family here in Brisbane, in Queensland and Australia, or is it a fairly small group?
Well, now that my sisters have had a couple of children, so there's some young ones hanging around now, which is lovely. So my father and mother always enjoy preparing Christmas for them. And on my mother's side, yes, quite an extended family, but not many other relatives. My grandfather's brothers remained in Poland, and there are some relatives that we've tracked down in New York.
Okay, interesting. The Polish spread post World War II? Yes, did generally spread out to the US as well, but
But they actually, I think it's a very brave move when people decide to leave their country and their homeland and go somewhere new. And I think that's the story of many migrants who have come, especially to Queensland over the years, where they've come here for a better life and better opportunities. And I'm incredibly grateful to my grandfather Leo and my grandmother Lucy for embarking on that journey to give their family the best opportunities in life.
Extraordinarily brave thing to do at a time when the world really was in a state of upheaval.
Absolutely. And my grandfather was very strong on the basic necessities of life. He often, he said to me, I can remember standing on the back of his balcony at Crocus Street in Inala, and he said, I've got everything in the world that I want. I have a roof over my head, I have food on the table, and I have my family here.
Simple needs. World's changed a lot in the last 30 odd years, hasn't it?
It has, but I think we always need to go back to those basic necessities, and family is everything, and community is second to that.
Very good. All right. You're watching Meet the Ministers, and we'll be back after the break.